Spider-Man goes to the doctor after getting shot only to find out that he's dying, which only gets worse when his powers then gradually start to fail him as we see him unsticking from walls and whatnot, to the point that his hero friends such as Wolverine started getting really worried about him and therefore sent him the greatest minds of Marvel, who quickly ran a test on him. And so when Reed determined that Spider-Man is dying of cellular decay that is linked to his radioactive nature, they went ahead and got a hold of the Hulk, considering his expertise in radioactivity. However, even he didn't really have anything that would be able to combat that type of illness Pete had, but he nonetheless did have a suggestion. Peter therefore ended up getting sent to Wakanda, where he would enjoy his time for a little before Black Panther had to tell him that he had nothing for him. And so when science couldn't help, he was left with no other option but to see if magic had an answer, which it kinda did, as Doctor Strange ends up explaining to him that his illness wasn't caused by physical reasons, as it was kicked off by supernatural elements, and that there isn't really anything to do about it. But that essentially didn't really matter, cause while Peter is trying to process the news, Morlun decided to show up out of nowhere and beat the hell out of Peter, leaving him on his deathbed once again. However, because he wanted to enjoy feeding on his soul, he waited for the scene to clear up and for Spidey to get taken to the hospital. And so later at the hospital, when he shows up to feed on Spidey's soul, Peter somehow wakes up possessed only to kill Morlun and then die. But later when MJ comes to the Avengers Tower to check up on Peter's body, she finds it split open and left there, as it would turn out that that wasn't the real Peter, because the real one was hiding in a web egg sac underneath a bridge, communicating with a huge spider called the Other, that basically ends up telling him that he needs to embrace the mystical side of his powers and ultimately ditch things like the web shooters. He eventually accepts his mystical nature and emerges out of the web sac, returning to May and MJ, where Reed then runs tests on him and sees that he's fully healed. But when he goes out to fight, we see him popping out spikes out of his wrist and using organic webbing to embrace his spider side as much as possible.